America. He's originally from India, from Chennai, and from already early years he came into contact with Krishna consciousness. He also graduated as an engineer, but later he decided to dedicate his full time to this mission and to Krishna conscious lifestyle. So already in Chennai he has served in many capacities, especially for the youth there, and he's a disciple of His Holiness Bhakti-Vikas Maharaj. Later he then moved to America, where he's now living in Atlanta in a temple called Krishna Life Temple. And this temple is very famous because it's a very unique temple which is distributing the Krishna conscious philosophy in a very, very elaborate and very, very big ways. And many, many people are very much profiting from that temple. And so it's a very honor to have him here. He's now traveling with other two boys here in Europe, and also to learn some sustainable ways to live on the farms, etc. So thank you, Prabhu, for visiting us. And before we start, just two requests. Please, everyone, move forward. Please use this space. Please come forward so all the latecomers, they have also some space.
Thank you.
Don't be shy. And the second question is about the translation. So braucht jemand eine deutsche Übersetzung? Versteht jemand kein Englisch und braucht eine deutsche Übersetzung? Okay. Then I wish you a very happy Sunday. Hare Krishna. Russian, but it will be simultaneous. So I use
Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Vanachari Yamuna Tera Vanachari यमुना तेरा वनचारी यमुना यमुना तेरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी 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 हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य श्रोतसत श्री श्रीमद अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा देवी की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति विकास स्वामिनिति नामने नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी विचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा welcome to all the guests here for the Sunday program at ISKCON Zurich, and I'm also grateful to be able to be present here and render some little service by saying something on the philosophy and science of Krishna consciousness as enunciated by the founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The topic that I was given today was be a giver. This is what I was asked to speak on. And I thought let's talk about what people generally give, the meaning of the word giver, and then how is all this in relation to us. So in general, we see people in this world, they like to give things. Why? In fact, there's a day in the United States, I don't know if that's followed here in Europe or not, but in the United States there's a day called Giving Tuesday. And it comes after Thanksgiving. And it's a day when several non-profits run different campaigns. There are all kinds of donor matching programs. In the past, Facebook used to have no fees for donations offered on that day and given to charities, and they were matching donations and all this kind of things. So there is a lot of emphasis in the world to give, at least in United States, and I'm sure everywhere else people have this culture that to give is a nice thing. That when people give, this is something good. Why is that something good? Because especially the idea of giving is that it's supposed to be done selflessly. Like if somebody does give in expectation of something back, like okay, you go and give, you give 10 francs at the cashier in a supermarket, it's not considered that you gave something. It's different to what in the sense of us using this word giving. It's different. How is it different? Why is when we're using the word giving, we are referring to primarily in the sense of a donation, right? Why is giving the cashier where you actually give him some money? Why is that not considered giving? Any thoughts? Yeah, anybody can say. Go ahead.
Because one wants something back.
Because you want something back, and what is that called? It's called a business. It's called a transaction, right? So when we give something, if somebody makes a show of charity only to actually get some returns, maybe not so visible, get something in the back, then people when it's find out, they say, oh, he got exposed. That person got exposed because they wanted something back. So this idea of giving means that someone has to give something without expectation in return, without expecting anything in return. And that means that it has to be selfless. Now, what do people generally like to give selflessly? People give, of course, they give money in charity. What else do people give? Give gifts. You give gifts to people. Okay, that's giving. Then what else do people like to give? Yes?
Time or company?
They give time. That's a good one. Yeah, people give time. When you give time to someone, that's also some giving because you could be doing something else with that time. What else do people like to give? They like to give clothes. They like to give blood. Right? Donate blood. You can. What else do people like to give? Organs? I'm going maybe too much medical here. But there's so many things that people give. Right? What else do people give? Just one more example. Anything else? Anything else interesting? Something? Food. Very important thing. So a lot of people like to do. They like to give food. So these are things that people like to give. And it is said that when you give things like this, and there are so many charitable organizations in the world, so many non-profits, with the attempt of giving so many things, especially in a world where there's always war, there's some organization, not some, several organizations doing charity for war-torn countries and this and that, and it's all supposed to be a good thing. And yes, it is a good thing. Definitely giving charity is a good thing. But now these are all people who are givers. Now, here we are assembled here to talk about Krishna consciousness, and Krishna refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of everything, the creator, the absolute truth, the one from which everything has come from. Now, when we say that one thing or that one person from whom everything has come from, the Vedas describe that one person as the giver. The topic today is to be a giver. But before we understand what a giver means, we could start to understand who the giver is. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, supplies all of the necessities of all living beings in this world. And this is something very interesting to understand. Because we as human beings, we all have different needs. We all have different needs, and sometimes several societies have a lot of needs, and one society or one group of people try to satisfy the needs of other people, and when they satisfy those needs without expecting something in return, that's called charity. You will find more donation drives in wealthier countries than in poor countries, because in poor countries, I was just speaking with my godbrother Madhav Padmanabh Prabhu about Sri Lanka. And a little while ago, Sri Lanka's economic situation was really, really bad. It was so bad that people couldn't afford to buy anything. And they were the country couldn't buy imports. So the country couldn't import gasoline, the country couldn't import so many things, and people were unable to supply their basic necessities. Things have gotten a little better from that position, but he was telling me that at least in Sri Lanka, even if you get a job, your job is not sufficient to provide for what you need. The inflation is so high in the country that the amount of money that you earn is not sufficient to provide for you and your family. So how do people live there? He said, well, people generally have relatives or sons, daughters, whoever, who are living in foreign countries, and then they send money, and that's how things survive. This is the case in also countries like Cuba, Venezuela. These are some countries where now you will not find in places like these countries, like Sri Lanka, you won't find so many donation drives going on, because people don't have people don't have money to put food on the table for their family members. What are they going to donate? How are they going to donate? They need donations. You don't go ask a hungry man for food. It's actually very insulting. So, the wealthier countries that have more are expected to give and provide for those who don't have. And now, when we are referring to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when we are referring to Krishna, the Vedas inform us that he is the original giver. How is he the original giver? Because he gives us so many things that we don't even realize that we use. Like what? Water, air that we breathe. He gives us this body. He gives us the heat of sunlight. He gives us rain that descends from clouds. Well, this is all just material nature. How do we know that material nature has a controller? You see, material nature can interact, but it has no impetus of its own. Material nature has no impetus to do something of its own. And this is the biggest issue that cosmologists face, or scientists who are trying to understand the origin of life. This is one of the big questions: is when do chemicals have developed desire? or what is desire. They tend to try to explain desire as a bunch of chemical reactions, but desire is more than just chemical reactions, some electric pulses that are fired in some side of the brain. Which is why, although there are so many pills out there, so many medications and also drugs, which are expected to give you happiness, still by taking those, it's not a solution for happiness, because happiness is something that is separate. It's not just putting some chemicals in your body, some kind of hormones in your body, and then suddenly you feel very happy. The sense of happiness may be there, but that is different to desire and satisfaction. So, chemicals by itself cannot desire. Material nature by itself cannot desire. And therefore, when we see these things happening in this material, which are all extremely important for our survival, such as the sunlight. If sunlight wasn't there, you can't survive. Why? Because food won't. You can't grow food. And if nothing grows, then everything dies. So sunlight's extremely important. Rain's important, and we take all this for granted. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the giver of all necessities. He's the giver of everything that we need. And He's not just the giver of everything that we as humans need. He's the giver of everything that every plant, every animal, every species of life needs. And this is where we can understand what it means to be a giver. Because most people have a misconception that there is not enough in this world, that there is so much lacking in this world that they need to step in and do something. Now, the Vedas challenge this. The Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam challenges this. The Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam informs us that animals seem to have everything that they need to survive. Animals don't feel the need to create charitable institutions to go around and solve their problems. Why is that so? What is it? I think last week or something, there was a heat wave going around in Europe, and there were reports of people like dying or things like this. And even in the United States, there's a heat wave that was just in California on the west coast, and now it's moving to the east coast, and it apparently is going to cook the whole east coast of the United States. And when this happens, generally you come, on the TV or something, you hear news reports of people dying and things like this. And of course, there are many charitable institutions that step in and say, okay, we're going to set up cooling stations, we're going to set up water stations, we're going to give people water bottles so that they're safe and they can be hydrated, and like this and like that. But who else was experiencing the heat waves? The pigeons. The pigeons were also experiencing the heat waves. And also there's sometimes cold snaps. In the United States, it's called they call it the Arctic freeze or something like this. I forget what it's called. Huh? No, it's more than a chill. It's more than a chill. It's like some horrific term.
Blast?
Huh? Arctic blast, something else actually. But anyways, you get the point. That what happens is that temperatures drop extremely low, and immediately all the homeless people have to be put inside, shelters. Well, voila, there are homeless people in the United States, a lot of them. And so the homeless people have to be put inside, warming tents and shelters and things like this, because otherwise they freeze and die. But the same pigeons were there, and the next morning you wake up, it's not that you see a bunch of pigeons dead, because they didn't have the warming shelters to survive. How are their needs provided for? And why is there not that sense of lacking as much as there is in the human society? Because their needs are provided by Krishna, by God. Because material nature does not have material nature does not act of its own. Material nature doesn't have desire, doesn't have motivation. Motivation comes from persons. And if there is so much order going on in the universe, that order means that there is an order supplier. And that order supplier is what people over centuries, millennia, have worshipped as God in different ways, shapes, forms, understood Him in different ways and things like this. But the point is the recognition of a power that is ordering and controlling things, because things aren't random. Saying that everything is happening by chance is basically like saying that you don't know what the heck is going on. That's basically what it is. It's just a sophisticated way of saying that things are happening by chance. Nothing's happening by chance. The same power that provides for the pigeon, which needs, maybe a handful of food to eat a day, is providing tons of food for herds of elephants roaming around in Africa every single day. An elephant needs it needs so much food, and they roam in herds. And they're not dying out of starvation. If at all, these animals are dying because of human intervention. That humans go around doing things, flipping their ecosystems around and things like that. But left alone, the animals have sufficient to provide. They're not dying out of starvation. We don't see that. If there's an oil spill, then you see that mass pools of just dead fish or dead whatever. And that's because humans intervene. And we humans have this misconception because we don't recognize the existence of the giver. When we don't recognize the existence of the giver, we become false givers. And although the intention of these charitable institutions is noble, the intention is noble, they are not trying to get something in return, yet because they haven't recognized the existence of the giver, their actions fall short of solving the problem that they actually want to solve. The more humanity has progressed over the ages, the more charitable institutions have been created. And many of these charitable institutions are trying to fight poverty. Has poverty gone anywhere? Still exists. It still exists. We've opened more hospitals than ever in the history of humankind. Has disease gone anywhere? No. We have more people donating, contributing, and trying to solve problems of this world. Have the problems gone? No. This is the hard truth. And why is that so? Because something in the system seems to have a problem. There's some problem that when we try to solve a problem, we end up creating another problem. I was speaking about this the other day in another class. It's an interesting point, so I'm going to mention it. Now they're trying to solve, the problem of greenhouse gas emissions. This is a big problem in the world today. Okay, and they're trying to introduce electric cars, and electric cars are called the green way of transportation. And they're clean, right? They use that word clean. You know what else they used to call clean in the early 1900s in the United States? Gasoline cars. Why? Because they were cleaner than horse carriages. The horse carriages, they were going around the city, and all these horses were, passing stool everywhere around the city and creating this big stench, and there had, hordes of people going around picking this. And of course, they didn't have these fancy, garbage dump trucks that shut. Even then, when they shut, it's still when you pass by that garbage truck, you can smell. What to speak of a cart full of horse stool, horse dung that they're going around the city. The stench goes around for blocks. The city, you smell that stench. So in that sense, the gasoline car was clean. Look, it doesn't poop. It doesn't pass stool when it goes around. It's amazing. It's clean. Well, now it's called dirty. Right? Now gasoline cars, diesel cars are called dirty. Why? Because they never thought in the 1900s that this would cause the earth to warm up or whatever, climate change. They never thought that would happen. You couldn't even dream of it. Could you imagine being in the 1900s, looking at this horse cart, passing stool, and thinking, okay, these gasoline cars, how would you ever imagine that something would go up in the universe and then warm the whole earth? Up into the sky and warm the whole earth. How could we imagine this? Could not conceive of that. But here we are with a problem. And this is what we see happening. That when we solve one problem, another problem gets created, and the problem is such that it was just completely impossible for us to predict it, because it was way beyond what knowledge we had at that point of time. It's just way beyond our ability to conceive of that particular problem. And we see that as people are trying to solve different problems of this world, even with a very noble and charitable motivation, they end up facing problems that they didn't expect to face. And then they try to solve those problems, and those problems create other problems. Why is it like this? And then, in the end of everything, you kind of feel like, man, we actually, we met a guy. He came to our Sunday feast at Krishna Life, and we were like, and he was like, so, what do you? He mentioned that his goal of his life, that he believed in reincarnation, and he said, I would actually like to be born as a squirrel in my next life, because the squirrels look so happy. The squirrels have less problems in their life than I have problems in my life. And so this is what happens. We try to solve all these problems. We think we're very intelligent. We come up with all these societies and this and that. And then you look at the squirrel and you're like, damn. This damn squirrel is like, it's having the time of his life. All he has to do is running around chasing this other squirrel, and then when he's hungry, he goes and finds his food. When I'm hungry, I have a problem finding my food. So, if we don't recognize the giver, then even if we are a giver, it won't help. Now, from this, the Vedas, especially the Vedanta Sutra, motivates us to ask the fundamental question: why is all this happening? What am I doing over here? What is the nature of this world? Who am I? What is going on? And who is this controller? If we are a little sober and we ask these pertinent questions, then all the problems in human life are solved. This is what the Bhagavad Gita teaches us. And this is that the purpose of human life, the one thing that humans can do, this is stated in the Mahabharata, that ahara nidra bhaya maitunam cha samanyam etat pashubir naranam jnano hi tesham adhiko vishesham jnanena hina pashubis samanam. That ahara nidra bhaya maituna, that eating, sleeping, mating and defending, these four things are common between humans and animals. We also have to eat, they also have to eat. We also have to sleep, they also have to sleep. We engage in intercourse for the sake of progeny. They also engage in intercourse to propagate their own species. And we also defend, they also defend. But jnano hi tesham adhiko vishesham, sometimes it's said dharma, there are both versions of this verse, that jnano hi tesham, that knowledge is that extra special feature of a human that is not found in the animal form of life. Jnano hi tesham adhiko vishesham jnanena hina. But when a human being is without that knowledge, he is equal to that of an animal. he is not different to that of an animal. He may be very sophisticated, he may have many societies, he may be having many governmental systems, etc., etc. He may be a PhD, whatever. But if he does not have knowledge of who he is, what is the nature of this world, then he is not different from an animal. And when a human being understands his actual nature, that he understands that he is not this body, he is spirit soul, that we as spirit souls are actually eternal, and we are not meant to be in this position of temporality, that in this world of temporariness, where the happiness that we experience is limited. But what we seek is actually unlimited happiness. We seek a permanent situation. We seek permanent peace. We seek permanent happiness. But yet, what we get is temporary peace and temporary happiness at best. At best. Worst, we don't even get that sometimes. So when we understand this, and when a person receives that knowledge, one is he's able to solve all the problems of his life. Why? Because now he's acting in his constitutional position. The reason why animals receive the necessities that they need and humans seem to be lacking in those necessities is not because God likes the animals and hates the human beings. It's because animals are acting according to their life form. They're acting according to their instincts. They're capable of doing more, but they don't do more than that. A herd of elephants could easily be destroying one village after another every single day. No problem. It's no big deal. You can see videos of elephants going on a rampage. It's actually really scary. But they don't do it. Neither do they eat more than required. An animal, most of the time, the moment it eats, after it's eaten, that's it. When it's hungry again, it will go find its food again. And then it eats only as much as required. But humans are not like that. And humans will take, and then they'll keep some, they'll store some, steal some, all this kind of crazy. Because we've been given this minute level of independence so that we can inquire about the nature of our life. And when we inquire about the nature of our life, we receive that knowledge and we become satisfied. We act according to the purpose of our life, which is to become self-realized, to become conscious of that giver who's the source of everything in this world, the source of all necessities. And when we learn about him and when we take shelter of him, he who is known as Krishna, we attain a life of eternal knowledge and bliss. And when a person receives that, which is called Krishna consciousness, it is being conscious of Krishna. When a person receives that, he becomes so full that now he wants to give this to others. And that's when being a giver makes the most amount of sense, because we can try to solve by giving temporary things, we can try to solve temporary problems. But when you give a person Krishna, when you give him knowledge of Krishna, when you give him this transcendental knowledge, he has the power to solve all his problems. Because one who has knowledge will understand that the people, even in this room, or whoever we see, all living entities, this is an experience they are going through, because they are spirit souls and they are eternal. Right now, we are going through a human experience. Somebody may be going through a German human experience. Another may be going through an Indian human experience. Somebody else through an American human experience. And there are others who are going through a bear experience, a cat experience. When that experience is over, they transmigrate into another experience. This is called reincarnation. And then there's a whole new set of problems that they have to deal with. But if one receives Krishna consciousness, one understands who one is, one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by accepting the process of devotional service, which is full of knowledge. It's not a blind process. It's not a cult. It's not a process where we cannot explain why we are doing what we are doing. And the process also is joyfully executed in the association of devotees who are all sincerely trying to give up material desires, trying to control their mind and senses, but most importantly, they are all trying to come together and learn about Krishna and serve Krishna. In that association, one becomes very blissful. And Lord Chaitanya's movement, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself who has descended in this age to give us this process, which is known as Sankirtan, where everyone comes together and chants Krishna's holy names in the form of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra that we see here. This is Hare Krishna? Okay, yeah. So this Hare Krishna mantra. And this mantra, the sound vibration, purifies our mind and intelligence. It purifies our mind from the contamination that prevents us, that clogs our intelligence and drags our senses to doing things that we know condition us. And this Maha Mantra gives us the intelligence by which we can liberate ourselves and liberate others. And ultimately this Maha Mantra also gives us that bliss that we are all seeking for. We are all ultimately seeking Krishna, because Krishna is the source of everything that we want. If you want wealth, Krishna is the source of that wealth. You want good health, Krishna is the source of that good health. You want beauty, Krishna is the source of that beauty. You name it, Krishna is the source of that. Therefore, we are all ultimately seeking Krishna. And if we accept Krishna in whole, not just some portion of Krishna, then we will become whole ourselves. And when we give, and when we have perfected our lives by accepting Krishna, then we can become instruments to give Krishna. We become instruments of the spiritual master like Srila Prabhupada, who has given us Krishna in the form of these books that we have. And we can go and give those books to others, and we can talk about Krishna, and we can give them prasadam, and we can invite them into this wonderful process of Krishna consciousness. And this is how we can become givers, real givers. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually ordered everyone to do this. That Janma Sarthaka Kari Karo Paro Upakar. Perfect your lives. We all have a duty to perfect our own lives. And we Karo Paro Upakar. We have a duty to help others also. In giving them the means by which they can also perfect their lives. So it's 4:45. I will stop here. If there are any questions or comments, please feel free to ask. Any questions? Any comments? Yes.
Thank you very much for that.
So we know that if we follow the path, we actually become happy, as you mentioned very nicely. But we see like sometimes we're not. And we think like, yeah, we're following, but I have so many problems. And yeah, how to really understand and see that actually Krishna consciousness solves every single problem, and we just have to turn to Krishna, then every problem is solved. And not to like think, yeah, there's Krishna consciousness, but there is a problem we have to solve it now. So, how to see that?
That's a good question. You see, most of the time, at least in my personal experience, we say we are following, but actually we're not following completely. Srila Prabhupada said, see, the one major issue that we all face, since you're asking as a devotee who's already practicing Krishna consciousness, one of the major things we face is we have offensive chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We do not chant offenselessly. Actually, offenseless chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra leads very soon, it leads to love of Godhead. But we have offensive chanting. Now, one of the main reasons of having offensive chanting, this was the discussion we had yesterday at Langenthal. That's right. Okay. We had was one of the main reasons we can't see. We have to read, but when we're reading, we feel sleepy. Mind goes here and there, and when same thing when you pick up the beads, a mind goes here and there. One of the main reasons for that is we're not regulated. And Krishna and we were analyzing this in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 6, where Krishna discusses this about regulation, and he begins that you have to become regulated by the activities of eating and sleeping, and that's where we tend to struggle. So when we become regulated in the activities of eating and sleeping, then Krishna in the very next verse he describes that you become regulated in the activities of work and recreation. Interestingly, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that for a Krishna conscious devotee, there is no need for recreation because he's very happy and he's very content. There is no need for any material sort of recreation because he's very regulated. Therefore, he doesn't need recreation. He doesn't. And Srila Prabhupada was comparing that with how people in the material world, because of material desires, they tend to overwork, or generally overwork, and this is the nature of this society today, and that you work and then you need your breaks. You need Saturday, Sunday to keep you sane. Otherwise, you go insane. You can't. You need that Saturday, Sunday. But in Krishna consciousness, if you're regulated, because a yogi, the characteristic of a yogi is he does the same thing every single day. And we can understand that by studying the lives of Srila Prabhupada or previous acharyas. They did the same thing every day. Every day, the same schedule. They had a very perfect schedule. And you can analyze the lives of so many pure devotees. They all had that kind of schedule. And this lack of regulation affects our enthusiasm in being able to practice properly, affects our consciousness, throws us off guard, and then you have all the concomitant things that accompany it. This is a bigger discussion, but that's kind of, in essence, one of the. There's so many answers that can be given, but we struggle to plug in because we're spaced out. And we're spaced out because we're not regulated. How to regulate? Regulate. It requires regulation requires desire and a little intelligence. Either we have to suffer a lot and then finally decide we want to regulate, or we hear and we realize, if I don't regulate, I'm going to suffer. Let me regulate. There's no. Like in Harry Potter, you wear Wingardium Leviosa or something like this. You just wave your wand and voila, you're regulated. It doesn't work like that. It's yoga is a process. It is a science, which means there is some sadhana involved. And there is sadhana. Sadhana means practice. Anything else? Yes.
Thank you for the lecture. How to become a real giver? Because we have this tendency to mix something. If we distribute in Krishna consciousness, our material nature, sometimes we mixed Krishna consciousness with our dirty nature. Thank you.
Yeah. Therefore, when one practices Krishna consciousness, one should be very much aware of that. This is a eternal process that's been going on for thousands of years. We're not the first persons to practice Krishna consciousness. And same thing with the problems that we face also. We're not the first to face them. That means that there have been people in the past, so many ages, and this is why we read Srimad Bhagavatam and things like this, to understand how different devotees acted. But specifically, we have to understand that we are acting as givers, we are acting as representatives of the acharyas, the Guru Parampara, our system of great teachers. And that is how purity is maintained. Without material motivation, is that we fulfill the orders of the spiritual master, we fulfill the orders of Srila Prabhupada, and we make sure that whatever we speak is authorized because it's already described in the text. And this is what is amazing, because we generally don't have experience of that. In the material world, you don't have a book that tells you everything. But the Bhagavad Gita is a book that describes literally all knowledge that's found in this world. But it doesn't mean, when we say all knowledge, it doesn't mean that the Bhagavad Gita tells you what your neighbor had for breakfast yesterday. That doesn't mean that you will find that in Bhagavad Gita. But what it means is that you have the knowledge to solve all the problems of life. That's the main point. So, Bhagavad Gita gives that knowledge. And therefore, whatever we speak, whatever we represent, has to be based upon three things: Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Guru refers to our spiritual master. Sadhu refers to the predecessor devotees, all the pure devotees who have existed in the past. And Shastra refers to the scriptures themselves. Ultimately, the scriptures themselves, which are given directly by Krishna, are the basis of the knowledge, are the basis of even Guru and Sadhu acting. And therefore, initially, when we want to be givers, the best way to give is to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. Because at that point, you're distributing that knowledge. And that knowledge is intact. Whatever misconceptions we have don't get communicated because we are giving the books. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada emphasized book distribution so much. When we become a little more experienced, then, we can also be preachers, but, it's a process. It's a process, then we speak. But always, Srila Prabhupada's books are the basis. And the best way to be a giver is to actually give Srila Prabhupada's books, distribute them. Hare Krishna. Okay. Anything else? Oh, yes.
Thank you for your meditation. Thank you for your meditation. I'd like to ask you about what is the proper way to live without unnecessary desires?
How to live without unnecessary desires? Yeah, that's another good question. First off, one has to recognize what is necessary and unnecessary desires, right? Otherwise, you don't know. Many times, people have one of the problems is people generally agree, I need to give up unnecessary desires, but they have a huge problem finding out what is necessary and what's unnecessary. Like, is this actually necessary? It feels necessary. The cigarette feels so necessary to me, but it's not necessary. So, generally, so first off, one should understand what is necessary and what is unnecessary. And to understand that, one should read books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, because, like I said, these books contain transcendental knowledge. That's one thing. Second thing is, once you understand that something is unnecessary, still sometimes it might be hard to give it up. And why is that? Because we have a taste for those things. The person who's addicted to smoking, he may theoretically accept that I need to give up, I need to kick this habit. But he has some addiction because there is a little taste, although he knows that taste is killing him. And, after a while he's just like addicted to it. Then what you need is a higher taste. So, when you get a higher taste, rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate, that when you get a higher taste, you can give up the lower taste. And that's why one has to take up the process of Krishna consciousness seriously. That in the process of Krishna consciousness, the emphasis is more upon chanting Hare Krishna, reading the books, associating with devotees, coming together, taking prasadam, and fully diving into this process in distributing this knowledge to others, in actually positively engaging in Krishna consciousness and helping spread that Krishna consciousness. By doing that, what happens? One gains a higher taste and one loses lower taste. We've had experience with this, that devotees who take Krishna prasadam regularly, they lose taste for eating meat. They lose taste for non-vegetarian food. Why? Because this is just so much better, so much more wholesome. Because Krishna prasadam is not just vegetarian, it's offered to Krishna, it's transcendental food. So when you get a higher taste, which is the taste of acting on the platform of the soul, in relation with its constitutional position as being servant of Krishna, you get a higher taste and you give up unnecessary desires. And then at that point in time, we have necessary desire. Like for instance, a devotee has a desire to stay healthy. But he's not a health freak. Doesn't go overboard on health. You need to maintain health so that you take it. It's the difference between somebody who's crazy about maintaining their car, so much they're obsessed with it, versus another person who maintains his car in a nice way so that he can get around without problems. So a devotee maintains one's health to engage the body in Krishna's service. So that way he eliminates unnecessary desires. Thank you. Okay. Anything else, or should I end now? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank
you very much, Vishnu-citta Dasa, for speaking on the topic.
Need the mic to make your announcements.
Thank you very much, Vishnu-citta Prabhu, for speaking on the topic, who is the real giver and how we can become also a giver. Whenever you are back in Europe, please come visit us in Zurich. You are always welcome here, and with your boys also. We had yesterday a very fun day. So the next program, outside the vegetarian feast, sanctified feast, Prasharam is waiting for you. Just want to inform you, today evening from 8 o'clock onwards we have our mantra meditation, our kirtan, and for that His Grace Madhava Prabhu is back in Switzerland. He's a famous singer of the holy name, and he's back here. So a very special welcome to all of you to join there. Wish you a very nice Sunday.
I have an announcement. There's an amazing book called the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this Srimad Bhagavatam is a set of 18 books. This set of Srimad Bhagavatam contains all knowledge that you can imagine on the science of Krishna consciousness. This book is the most amazing encyclopedia of knowledge in the world. It's published by Srila Prabhupada. And if you don't have a set of Srimad Bhagavatam, get it. If you want any desire of yours to be fulfilled, get the Srimad Bhagavatam, get it today. So, you have Damodar Prasad Prabhu, Srimad Bhagavatam sets? So please get a set. If you don't have it, please get a set of Srimad Bhagavatam from Damodar Prasad Prabhu. He will be very happy to facilitate that desire of yours. And yeah, today you will go back with Krishna. We were talking about having Krishna. You can go back with Krishna today. Just take that Srimad Bhagavatam and your life will be perfect. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
It's not first afterwards you chant. When you regulate yourself, your chanting gets better. You is that when
Ganz gut. Kannst du schon ein
C'était OK.